Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our June 15th council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Do we have a motion to excuse Mr. Ball?
I'll make a motion we excuse Mr. Ball.
Second.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval minutes of the regular meeting of June 1st, 2015. Any additions or corrections?
I had one question not that it makes any difference, but 15-112, I thought I made the motion, but I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Approval manifest 2015-11 in the amount of $221,168.81. Dr. Hayes.
I just had one question. Several months ago, I inquired why we were purchasing patch from Payne and Dolan, and Mr. Anderson said that it was a stickier patch and it was better for winter patching, or is that still the case that we're?
Yes, we're still purchasing CP7. It's a patch that has a lot more tack to it and stays in the holes better than the other stuff. It's a little more expensive, but I believe it's worth it over the long haul to purchase this stuff.
I also have a question. I see when they patch, it is sticky when you drive over a fresh patch to throw stuff up.
Yeah, that's,
Does anyone ever put crushed rock on top of a patch so it doesn't stick to a car? I guess that doesn't make any sense, but.
no,
it seems
it's,
like
the other stuff wouldn't stick to your tires because there wasn't enough tack in it. This newer stuff, after you drive over it a few times, then, more than a few times, but after you drive over it for, let's say about a week after traffic, that's all stops, it gets packed in and it's nice and smooth. If you look at some of the spots all over town that have been done already, it doesn't pick up anymore, it's over with, and it's all packed in nice and smooth.
It's the only question I had.
Lee.
No question, just one comment here on page 1 under Mayor Council elections. Congratulations to Amanda Schultz and Michael Treiber for getting a WPPI scholarship. That's all.
Chris.
No questions?
I have no questions. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve manifest 2015-11 in the amount of $221,168.81.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or agenda item? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. There'll be a time for further comment at the end of the meeting on any subject. Okay. Seeing none. First thing, we have appointments and presentations. Resolution 2015-14, Norway Vulcan Area School 50-year anniversary of consolidation. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The resolution that's before you was put together to recognize the Norway Vulcan Area Schools, 50-year. This is the 50-year anniversary of the consolidation. There are a number of groups that are getting together, sending letters of congratulation, and I thought it was appropriate for us to send a congratulatory resolution.
One little comment here. I see on the agenda it says resolution 2015-14, but on the copy itself it says 2014-14.
On the actual, that's on the your sheet for the recommendation. The actual resolution is correct.
Oh, okay.
2015-14. That was just a typo on your council notes.
Make a motion, we approve resolution 2015-14.
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Okay, next is Resolution 2015-15, City of Norway Pay Rate for Non-Union Employees, Revision 1. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We actually have three resolutions in order. The last meeting, we had a public hearing on our budget. We also passed a pay rate for the non-union employees and the billing rates and fee structure. During this past couple of weeks, we noticed that a couple of the rates were not included, so we had them included. Our police clerk, she was not on the list. And also, following some comments from the last meeting, we looked at, well, we had our city assessor who was handling our code enforcement. He has, based on, a lot of it is based on his additional requirements through the state for the assessing side. He has said it's best for us now to look elsewhere for the assistance in code enforcement and also under the zoning, our zoning assistant. So we adjusted his employment agreement and we put in a code zoning assistant pay in this resolution.
Question. Where did this $17.63 per hour come from?
That
for
is a calculation based on what we were
The
paying for
$5,000?
code. Well, it was also $6,000 in healthcare that he has given up for doing the zoning. So there was two parts to the what he was doing. The code enforcement was just the $5,000, and the $6,000 was the
I
insurance.
never realized that all those benefits were tacked onto that 5,000, which was what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Well, the healthcare, I think, was done a number of years ago. That was before the code enforcement.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't done at the same time. So we took the $11,000 and divided it by the 12 hours per week that we have him working.
And is this gentleman hired for that now?
This gentleman was interviewed, there was a gentleman that was interviewed, and if he is interested, we would like to put him on. He indicated that his other part-time employment also works at that $17 an hour. So I think it was in line with what we have budgeted for the position.
So basically, we're still saving $6,000 then, because of the benefits.
No, I mean, we're paying it out.
Still
for
getting those 6,000 benefits?
No, the
assessor's
$6,000 value of the benefits were calculated into the rate. So it was the 12 hours a week out of $11,000 divided by the 12 hours a week.
You have $11,000 in your budget for this position. So that's what we calculated out. And the individual that we spoke to, because of the type of interaction that we have, that this position gets, very contentious, a lot of times lack of respect, very confrontational. The individual that handles this job is going to have to be able to handle themselves. And Jim did an excellent job in doing that. This person's going to be able to write tickets if we need to. I can tell you that of the tickets, in fact, you have in your executive memo a list of the citations that we've had to issue over a number of years that Jim's been handling the job. And I can tell you that in every case, the people just either ignored us to the point where we had to do something, or they were confrontational to the point where there was no working with them, so we issued a citation. The citation's not issued as a first response.
I am going to ask a question that was asked of me, and I really didn't have the answer to satisfy him. Why do you have a 7-man police force and you got to hire somebody else out to do this? And I couldn't really give him the answer.
This person is doing more than what, we have a 7-man police force to handle 24/7 coverage. And, you know, this past week, our police force had 4 physical altercations we've had to haul, I don't know how many different people to jail. It's, your code enforcement, based on the directives from the council over a number of years, has been put in a priority. And, you know, when we're talking about 1 or 2 people on at any given time, and they're dealing with drug issues, or they're dealing with domestics and physical altercations, you know, the code enforcement's gonna take a back seat. So, you know, a lot of code enforcement is the paperwork side. And sending letters, dealing with, the complaints aren't coming from the code enforcement officer. The code enforcement officer is responding to the complaints, and those complaints, a lot of them are generated by the PD that's, you know, they're out in the community. You know, we get the position is very busy. So they can't do a lot of work that the code enforcement officer is doing sitting in their car. I mean, they're gonna have to be put in the office to do a lot of this work. So I guess that is the answer to that question, and it's a very busy position. But again, probably the biggest part of this is being able to deal with the confrontation.
I can understand that. Like I said, I was asked these questions, and I really couldn't give them the proper answer. I do know that the system is slow. Maybe somehow, some way, somewhere down the line, we can make the system faster. Right now, it's basically 28 days, I believe, it takes for everything to go through till they officially get the citation.
Yeah, we basically deal with a handful of like 95% of what we deal with comes down to about 3 different areas. And one is the grass during the summer, junk in the spring especially, the disabled vehicles, the junk cars.
I see there are 29 for unregistered, unlicensed, or junk
Yeah.
cars / machineries
And,
in the yards.
you know, we do end up having to deal with some of the same people over and over again. So there's a due process that we built into our property maintenance rules, ordinance. And we have been taken to court numerous times, and we have yet to lose a case, and I'm not
And yet
bragging about
that'll
it, it's
tie up
just-
that police officer also, right?
Well, the code enforcement officer, yes.
Code enforcement
They're
officer.
the ones that would end up going into the
okay.
court to see a magistrate. But the reason that we're successful is because of the due process. By the time it gets to that point, we've given them every opportunity to make the corrective action. So when you look at, and I'm not saying we shouldn't look at the timing and tighten up some of the timing if we can.
Well, that's where I'm going. I guess
Right.
I'd like to see this.
We're gonna have to have some due process, but, you know, we tightened up the grass notice. I think we have 7 days for corrective action on the grass. Maybe that's too long.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's something that as a council, you know, we can pull those and, you know, we can look at pulling at, the different, you know, stages and see if, we wanna pull some of that up.
Okay.
Make a motion, we approve resolution 2015-15, except for the zoning code assistant, it'd be $17.50 an hour instead of $17.63. I don't like even or odd numbers.
Okay, motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Chris with that change.
1750.
Yep. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
No.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Olja?
Yes. Next, what you were going on is the General Appropriations Act, Resolution 2015-16.
Okay, this one, this particular resolution, General Appropriations Act is a requirement under statute. Resolution put forward that outlines general revenues and expenditures, including the major and local street fund. Something we handle each year.
Okay, is there any questions or comments? I know we've discussed this through a number of budget hearings. and we discussed it some last meeting. If not, no questions or comments? Is there any from the public? I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2015-16, General Appropriations Act.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
The last one of these resolutions is the Resolution 2015-17. It's to adopt the 2015-16 operating and capital improvements budget. Again, the budget was part of the hearings. We've had our public hearing last week, our last meeting. Is there any questions? Questions from the public, comments? Mr. Aslan, you know, you had a question last time, and Ray answered it for you?
Yeah, I was gonna talk to you after, I didn't want to hold up the start of the meeting. I'll talk to you with that.
Okay.
How much did the budget increase?
Please come up to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Yeah, I was wondering how much the budget went up. Increase, was it at 3% last year?
Just, could you say your name and address?
Pete Hopper,
Uh,
Norway Hill.
just for the record, so we have it.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Curry Road.
What?
Pete Hoppers?
Yeah, yeah.
What's your address?
Pardon?
What is your address?
Norway, 14, 12,
Okay, your question about increase, we have 13 funds within the city. General fund, which is your general where your taxes go into, and then of course all your utility funds. The total budget for the city is $13 million. The proposed budget for next year includes a $6 million project. So the project, the budget actually, the revenues and expenditures actually are flat between this year and next year, but when we include that $6 million project, that increases the overall budget. You know what I'm saying? Because it's, otherwise it's flat, yeah, so.
Thank you.
But individual parts go up and down overall, though, between that $13 million is basically flat.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Marcia Delswag, 215 Brown Street, Norway. I'd like to know why we're taking money out of the general fund that we can use to pay some of our operating expenses and put it towards golf course to pay off some bills or whatever.
A number of years ago, we had filed with the state a deficit elimination plan that because the golf course had run negative so many years, that we had to file and keep updating. And in that plan, I believe it was this year, it showed us making a payment of the amount that was still owed to bring the fund back up to zero. So it was no longer in the negative. Plus, we're going to be making some moves this year as to having the Golf Commission take over the operations of the course.
So this should be our last year of taking money from the general fund and the city operating budget to pay for the golf course's
Yes.
expenses? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council, any other questions on the budget? Comments?
Just as a follow-up on that, I think the council all agrees that the golf course still owes that money and hopefully it'll be repaid in the future.
Yeah, we have a lease agreement that we have to negotiate over the next few months. So that'll be part of that discussion, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's money that's gone forever. At least I would assume not.
We have a lease agreement that we have to negotiate, so.
Any other questions from the council? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that Resolution 2015-715 adopt the 2015-2016 operating and capital improvements budget.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is approval, city property purchase request, Mark Babalani. We had this come before us a month or a month and a half ago, and the request was made to send it to Planning Commission for review. Planning Commission has reviewed it, and they made some changes to the original offer. Their recommendation was to sell Mr. Babalani 7 acres for a price of $20,000. This was north of the former railroad grade that ran through there, and that would keep the railroad grade for both utility easements and bike path, and it would also keep the land south of that grade. Parks and Recreation reviewed it, and they came back with a different recommendation, that it would be option 2 that was offered by Mr. Babalani, and that was sell the 5-acre piece, keep the west end, the west 2 acres, and at a price of $16,000. Now it's up to council's decision which way they want to go. Both boards did recommend selling the piece for the home development.
Okay, my only concern and the concern of others there are that they want to make sure it is a single-family development with the reversal clause put in there, giving them what's normal, 2 years to build, normal 2 years to build, and just to make sure that it is a single-family residential home.
Grant, could that be put on as a deed restriction?
It's a covenant you can add on to the deed as part of the sale. It's a negotiation. You can put those, you can put a 2-year requirement to build, you can put a restriction that it remains single-family housing. I've seen it happen before. I think you can attach that.
Well, there's been blips in the past on that where things haven't done properly, so I just want to make sure that it's
Mark,
handled. I can't see where there'd be a problem with that.
Mark, could you come up? I know from what you've said before, your intent is a single-family home?
The zoning would take care of that if it was R1, right?
No, actually, the proper zoning for that size parcel would be rural residential, but in all residential districts, actually most zoning districts, apartment complexes or apartments
Yeah, it's gonna
would be
a
allowed.
single-family home,
It would
we
just,
don't have a problem with.
If we put the restriction on that just said,
the other question that did come up was of subdividing, possibly that you would subdivide in the future, if that's a possibility of putting that on there, that we won't
Yeah,
subdivide.
there will be no subdivision.
okay.
Thank you.
You know, which is the proper figure here now, the 5 acres for 15 or the 5 acres for 16? Because in the letter it says 16 and on our copy it says 15.
7 acres for 20.
I think you have to go by his offer sheet.
His
which is
offer
16.
sheet was 5 for 16,
Yeah, that's, okay,
or
that's
the 7 for 20. And that was,
Yeah.
Planning Commission's recommendation.
the
was
the
the
5 acre.
No, Planning Commission was 7 for 20.
Okay, then the Park and Recs had recommended the 5 acres.
Yeah.
Of course, that piece that's left wouldn't be worth,
Well, I don't know what they would,
I don't know what
what
they
the
want.
Park and Recs would
I
that
actually
make a
don't know why
difference?
Parks and Rec would be weighing in on property sale. I've never seen that before.
Well, I asked them to look at it basically because of the parks and recreational nature. They had the trail. They need to be aware of the railroad grade, that we're keeping that for the trail moving to the west. And we also had Gene at that meeting, mainly because of Gene's proposal of a land swap. And that proposal for land swap wasn't supported by anybody. But the Parks and Rec wanted us to move forward, whether it's the council or the DDA, most likely the DDA, at least initially because it's in their district, to work with Gene on just outright buying that property and work on a parking lot. So that's why the Parks and Rec kind of weighed in. Now, they did look at, they did look at the west side of the property. I know we've had many individual conversations about whether or not possibly a developable. I mean, you didn't go out and walk that. I mean, you have, but they really haven't. So I guess that was just something that they came up with. It's totally up to council, you know, as to whether you think, I mean, Doc, you were at the meeting. I mean, there was some comments about, well, is there something that western side could be used for? And I think that's where that came from. But I don't think they spent a whole lot of time looking to make the recommendation on the sale itself, because they all realize that that part was good. I think they spend more time talking about the parking lot.
The 2-acre parcel, it goes down to a point, and if you look at the grade of the railroad grade, and this, how the line, the water and sewer is gonna have to be way up high to keep the grade there. So if you came off of the highway off of US 2, there's gonna be one heck of an incline there, and the property is real skinny. And we're just looking for it just for a barrier, because we're gonna have a pretty expensive house there.
And that was planning commission's recommendation.
No.
It was a 4-3 vote, but that was their recommendation.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
I think there was also a concern, wanted to make sure that, like for easements, Mr. Paul's driveway, make sure he maintains that easement.
My concern on the whole thing was, I understand why we brought it to planning commission and to Breck, but I thought it was from a zoning standpoint, not should we sell or what price we should sell this for. I don't think it was appropriate for planning commission or Rec to be giving recommendations on a sale price or who to sell it to. I thought it was coming from a planning standpoint on what could be done with the property and how it should be split up and divided.
That was my point initially. Did they have any plans for that? And nobody seemed to know, and that's all they had to do was say, no, we don't. Issue solved. Kind
No,
of
but-
snowballed.
But if you read if you look at the policy, the sale policy that we passed, any property sale or request for purchase of city property goes to planning commission. They have to evaluate the economics of it. It's not just the land use, because if that property were zoned residential, well, we didn't parcel it or we didn't put a price on it, it's, clear it goes to the planning commission.
Correct.
You know, so,
And
I don't think it was out of line. I think it's just a matter of,
Well, I think we focused too much on the price
Yeah.
and,
well, we did talk quite a bit about whether or not it should be residential versus some
Correct.
other zoning. We zoned that park, and the reason it was zoned park is because there was no other thought put into it at the time. So let's just zone it park, that,
That's why I thought it went to the Park and Rec Committee.
yeah, well, yes, and, we have a park aspect because, or recreation aspect because of the trail. So, I mean, that's why they evaluate. I think the process, went relatively smoothly. I guess outside disagreement that they should make a economic decision, but I think the council's looking for, I felt like the directive to me was to come back to council with a recommendation.
That's what the planning commission's done in the past, at least since I've been involved with it. So they look at all aspects and come back with a complete recommendation usually.
well, the other recommendation that came up, and this is something that I brought up at planning commission, due to the number of requests we had for that property, instead of basing it on the offers we had and choosing a person, was to have the city subdivide, zone that property, and then put it out in the open market and let people bid, and we take the best price on that property. And that was my suggestion at planning commission for that property. To me, that's the fairest option for the people that are looking at the property, and the best option for the city as a whole is to put that property out on public market.
Well, it was asked if it could be purchased before, and the person was told it wasn't for sale, which really isn't fair. And if that was the case, it could have been sold a couple of years ago.
Well, I think you see that the planning commission had a 4-3 vote, and I think the 3 dissenting votes had that opinion. I mean, I don't think they dissented because of a residential nature or even the building of a house. I think it was the process by which it should be sold. And that means it was very close, and so council needs to evaluate that in your decision.
Well, I think when we look at it, we could do that, but you're gonna spend money getting it ready, you're gonna spend money reevaluating it, you could come out with it being lower, and then you're gonna delay the process. Right now, we have at least from talking to Jim, it's a fair offer. for the property. Is it the best offer? Possibly not, possibly, we don't know, but it's a fair offer for that property to sell now and move now and get tax dollars coming in off that property soon.
Are we going to readjust our sale of city property? I understand we've got some more offers on some other properties now that are
We passed-
officially not for sale?
We passed that procedure last meeting, that will go through the whole, there's no set of procedures everybody will follow.
Right, okay. I
There
just
have
want to make
been
sure
a
it's
number
set
of
there, yeah.
requests. I mean, we've gone a couple of years without a request, and now we've gotten a number of requests. They need to go through the process. It says in the policy who pays for surveys and appraisals. The problem we're going to have is that we're asked from both sides, you know, what the value of the property is. So what I'm going to recommend is that there are a number of properties that we could get appraisals for, and we could put it into a seller's agreement, you know, that the buyer would pay for the closing, basically pay for closing costs, based on your policy would pay for that appraisal. If they don't like the appraisal, they can go out and get another one, I suppose, on their own free will. But I know in dealing with, like when we bought property from the DNR, they had their appraisal, and this was what they were, you know, selling the property for. So, you know, it's not unusual for us to go out ahead of time. Gives us an idea. Jim, I know, is now a little bit hesitant because he's not an appraiser. He's, you know, he's given a few recommendations, and they seem to be coming back, getting questioned quite a bit on those. And so our recommendation, going back and forth, is like, let's just get a couple of those appraisals. They cost $250 a piece. And that'll put us on a good standing to start off with, and we can always do the, you know, the seller agreement when we sell.
Any questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to sell Mr. Bombolani for option number 1.
That's the 7 acres for 20,000.
Yeah.
I'll support. Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by myself. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes,
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
No.
Okay, Mark, we'll start working on the paperwork, work with Ray to get all the paperwork that we need to.
Okay, the purchase
It-
request that myself and Marcus on there,
Okay.
so.
And then that motion also included the other things that Mr. Mangini asked for.
goes without saying.
We'll have some deed requirements
Okay,
that we talked about. There won't be anything.
sounds good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda.
With the revision.
Yeah, with the reversion clause, the 2 years
Yeah,
to build.
yeah.
That's standard, and then the single-family home.
But we got to make sure it's in there this time.
Well, single-family home, and it can't be subdivided. Next on the agenda, approval US 2, US 8, project change order number 2. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the previous meeting, I made a presentation on change order number 1 for our US 2 and US 8 repairs we need to do per the MDOT specs. As I mentioned at the previous meeting, we are now in line with getting a reimbursement from the state. It's actually federal money through the Community Development Block Grant Program, you know, for making these repairs. In order to qualify for that monies, there are a number of requirements that we're finding ourselves having to address. The first one we did last meeting was Davis Bacon for the contractor. Under this change order, we have the same requirement, and actually it's, we were going to handle the signage and the detour on our own payroll, but under these requirements, it would be best if we put it all under one contract with Midwest Asphalt. So we asked them for a change order to put Give 'em Break Safety under their contract. That's what change order number 2. It's for $8,000 to you know, to get the signage put under Midwest contract.
You know, I know we're getting reimbursed on this, but this project's now 50% more than what it was when we started. And this reimbursement, is this going to reduce, we're getting the same amount of money, right? Are we getting the same amount no matter what in the reimbursement? Because they're capping how much we could get back. So we're just losing more of the reimbursement into this project.
Well, no, we actually have over $60,000 that we estimated in the project.
Okay.
So we have more than covered ourselves in the application, and, you know, we haven't hit that number yet.
I just,
Yeah,
like I
but,
say, I don't like that this project, it just keeps growing and growing.
oh, I understand. You know, we're at $45,000, 45.6 on this project with the 2 change orders. We started at 31. Doc Hayes asked at the last meeting, what happens if we just don't do it? Well, we don't get reimbursed, so, you know, we'll pay the 31,000 and we get the job done and it'll be done per the MDOT specs, but, you won't have any chance of getting reimbursed, so I guess that's the answer, short
Okay.
answer.
Any other comments?
Well, this is less work for our crew then. So now maybe we can get the compost pile done? Free up a little man hours?
We were never going to install the signage.
Oh.
Give them a break was always going to do it. The only difference is we're paying Davis-Bacon wages, so it can be put in the project.
Well, and that has to go under contracting, certain contracting, so it's better to put it all under one contract as opposed to a couple different ones.
Besides, the tennis court's got to be above the compost site. Okay, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a recommendation that change order number 2 be approved for Midwest Asphalt and Gravel for a price not to exceed $8,000 with a total not to exceed project amount of $45,680.
Second.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Last thing on the agenda is approval of the Low Energy Assistance Program opt-in. This is something we've done since they put it in place.
2 years.
For the last 2 years. And this will allow the city the ability to shut off in the winter. What this has done is it has made our residents who are behind more willing to come in and work with us rather than just ignore us till April. There is a charge that's put on each resident's bill. It's usually about $1, a little less than that, to cover the cost of this program.
No, that's, they haven't given us the figure for this year, but the first year was 99 cents, the second year was 97 cents. They won't give you the figure until after July 1st, when you're required to give your intention of opting in or opting out. They'll find out who all is opted in, and they'll calculate up what is required from all the opt-ins.
Any other questions, comments? Not, I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion, we approve low-income energy assistance program opt-in.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
That's our business this evening. Does anyone wish to address the council on any subject? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Bill Osmond, 507 Second Avenue. Is there anything square with the city now for that house movement? For two people?
I haven't had any conversations with the mover, although I know that he's been working with MDOT to get the permits for the highway. I think what he was gonna do is, yeah, I mean, we're waiting on the MDOT permit, and then once he does that, then we'll finish up our paperwork. We put that with our paperwork, so we're just kinda waiting on him.
Your phone's always working in the office here? I tried to call 3 times on Friday at 7520, isn't that it?
Oh, that's our
That's
fax.
the fax number.
What?
That's our fax number.
Did you get that, out of the phone books?
Our 9961.
phone books are all screwed up. We've been trying for years to get the phone book straight.
9961. The 7520 is the fax.
Yeah.
It rings once or twice when you get all that crap on.
Yeah.
And that's,
I'm glad that was it, because I'm not.
we've been trying.
Glad you know, it's what, 9961?
9961.
961.
Put it on your speed dial, Bill.
Anyone else wish to address the council? Okay, Chris. Lee.
I see the Dickinson Area Chamber Alliance. Now they're changed from, what were it, formerly the Dickinson Area Partnership. Has everybody paid their dues on that we know of? As I know we had issue with one not paying their dues.
I believe we still have the same issues.
Okay.
The county has reduced their dues, and the Iron Mountain still, I believe, is not in.
Okay. Well, I see here in your, what do they call it, the packet that you gave us, best places to start a business in Michigan. Of course, Detroit is number one, Auburn Hills, excuse me, that's right by Detroit. And Iron Mountain is listed as number 5 in the state of Michigan. The economy of Iron Mountain in the Upper Peninsula near the Wisconsin border, blah, blah, blah. Today, its economy is fueled by a combination of manufacturing, healthcare, blah, 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 blah. Local businesses include, and Iron Mountain Iron Mine. I still get a kick out of that. It's Iron Mountain Iron Mine, but it's in Vulcan. And I mean, here they're listed as a number 5 in the state to start a business, and they don't even belong to
What's that from, though?
NerdWallet, whoever that is.
Right, I mean, I think what happens is Iron Mountain's a county seat, and so they use Dickinson County as a whole, they use the city, the largest city, and it happens to be Iron Mountain. And I think that's why Iron Mountain has, for a number of years, felt like they weren't, they didn't want to participate. And I guess that's some of the arguments I've had for participating, if nothing else, to have our name out there, to try and get out there, because, we're just, screaming in the wind if people are gonna pass us over, so we gotta figure out how to get our information.
Yeah, and they got right in here, the Dickinson Area Chamber Alliance, Dickinson Chamber of Commerce provides local businesses with networking opportunities, referrals, and all kinds of goodies.
Yeah, and those are individual chamber members, not so much the city, the city's not. It's the same issue we have with the county, they're gonna get their props whether they're specifically in or not.
Well, it just kind of makes me wonder why we're still in the Dickinson Area Chamber Alliance now, even though I know they're working for us, for trying to get something going in the old Grevere place.
It's just, it would be hard for Norway to get our own marketing out there. Like Ray said, Iron Mountain's the seat of the county. People will come to Iron Mountain without being told about them. They'll come to Iron Mountain. What being involved in the Chamber Alliance gets us is our name out there, at least in conversations that they're in. And when people contact them, they'll recommend come down to Norway if we have something that they could use. If we're not in, they won't.
That's all I have.
Dr. Hayes.
No comments tonight.
I have no comments either. Joe, how's water still good?
Water's great. We're actually spilling water. So hydro's been running well, even though the one turbine is missing.
Are we gonna be delaying that other work because of how good the water's been?
Everything is getting delayed because of the water. It would be a big mistake right now to take units down to work on it, because the economic impact of that would be huge for the utility and the city. So it's status quo, generate power till waters recede, and then we'll focus on getting the work done after that.
Barry? Tricia? Right,
No, thank you.
great. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.